Maddie Lake, a member of the Conroe High Democrat Club.
Nika Montalvo, president of the Conroe High Democrat Club.
Hunter Gamble, president of the Young Republicans of Magnolia High Schools.
Blake Clifton, vice president of the Young Republicans of Magnolia High Schools.
And I'm Jay Stillberg, Democratic nominee for county judge in Montgomery County.
All right, first question. Do you believe that citizens should be notified about poll closings, opening, changes in voter registration status, and or changes in the actual laws?
Yes. The county judge is actually responsible for the elections in the county. And I think it's incumbent on not only the county judge and the local government, but the elections office and the officials in the elections office to keep the public aware of what they're doing. Right? Voting is probably the most precious thing that any of us have as Americans. And I think we should be knowledgeable and know what is happening with the voter rolls. Right? Yeah, it's our responsibility too to make sure we check and make sure that we're registered to vote. We get a little card in the mail. I know I have mine. But it never hurts to go check. It's easy enough to check. You can do it online. You can call the elections office. But I do think they should make sure that they're transparent in how they do business. That's how the government should work and how the government should always work, and not just things like elections and your voter registration, but everything else too.
I believe that our current Montgomery County Judge, Craig Dole, has done an excellent job. And what is your plan to keep or decrease property taxes in Montgomery County while dealing with increased growth in our county and need for first responders?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I'll agree with you. Craig has done a great job as the county judge. Him and I have had several discussions about that. And what are we going to do about property taxes? So I'll kind of take this in a few points, right? So let's talk about property taxes. So property taxes, our property taxes are made up of a lot of different pieces. The county is just one piece of it. And on average, we pay about 12% of our overall county tax, property taxes to the county. But if we break it down, I break my own personal property tax bill down. I pay 80% of my property taxes to two entities, which is the ISD I live in and the MUD district I live in. And if I break that down further, 52% of my property taxes go to the school districts. And the unfortunate part of it is that the county government doesn't have control of how our school districts set our tax rates. But what does have an effect on that is what happens in Austin. And the fact that the state government has continually reduced funding for our public education, is putting the burden of funding our school districts on local taxpayers. So number one, we need people that are going to advocate for and push for getting elected officials in Austin that are going to pass a state budget that has some responsibility. Now, and to break it down even further, if you look at our budget here in the county, it's $344 million for fiscal year 19. And that breaks down, there's just under 600,000 people in our county, and that breaks down to about $49 a person per month to fund our county government. And if we compare it to Harris County, which is 4.2 million people and over $2.5 billion for their budget, it breaks down to about $55 a person per month to fund their county government. So are there some inefficiencies and probably some wasted spending in there? Sure there are, because it's a government entity and I'll do my best to find it. But I don't want people to think that the problem with our property taxes is our county government, because it's not. That's one thing that we need to be clear about. But you do raise a great question of how are we going to take care of things like public safety, as you specifically mentioned, when it comes to population growth. If we look at population growth, the population trends are, we're going to be at 1 million people in 12 short years. We're going to be at 2.2 million people by 2050. So how are we going to deal with that? Because with population growth comes crime. That's what happens. Comes development, comes a lot of things that we have to address. So I'll specifically talk about public safety. So one thing, there's only one department, and I've talked, if any of you have watched or heard me talk, I talk about creating a strategic plan for our county, a roadmap of how we're going to deal with population growth when it comes to public safety, flood mitigation, mobility, and infrastructure. And we need that roadmap. And there's only one department in our county that actually does a strategic plan, and that's the Sheriff's Office. And Sheriff Henderson has done a great job since he's taken over of creating this strategic plan, which he actually used internal resources within his department to create. And that has given him the roadmap ahead of how he's seeing how he's got an 81 officer deficit based on population growth projections. Not to mention, he still has 25 empty seats, empty positions within the organization right now. So you're talking, he's got 110 empty positions to try to keep up with this, right? So, you know, this is something that I understand, and I want all the departments that it applies to start thinking about doing these strategic plans. I want to do one for the county, but part of that county strategic plan is we got to get the departments to start doing them for themselves. Because we see with the sheriff's department it works, and it gives a good roadmap. They're not perfect, they're living documents. But that's how we do it, right? And as a commissioner's court who approved the budget, we have to also understand that we need to start putting money and resources towards law enforcement and public safety, because we're already in a deficit and it's only going to get bigger, and we don't want our communities to be less safe with our population growth, because we want continued population growth. So we need advocates on the Commissioner's Court that are going to push for, okay, look, we got to find a way to get funding to go to these things, because I know that the constables and the sheriff struggle with it to try to get money out of the Commissioner's Court. So we have to have advocates to be able to push them, the other commissioners is what I mean by them, to understand the importance of making sure we have enough officers on the street.
Thank you.
All right, so public trust in government, especially in the lower levels of government, has been steadily declining.
Mhm.
Do you feel as if your position is being or is untrusted by the public? And if so, what will you do to try and raise that trust?
Yeah, so the first thing I'll say about the county judge is most people don't even know what the county judge does. I found this in the last year and a half campaigning for this job. A majority of people, even people that pay attention to politics, don't know what the county judge does. So there's a problem right there. So we need to educate, make sure people are educated on that. But I think as a whole, there's a lot of distrust in our government from all of us, to be honest with you. And you know, we see this polarization that's going on in our political environment, from national to state to local. We certainly see it here in Montgomery County. So we need to have elected officials that advocate for being able to talk to each other. You know, we have to recognize that as Democrats and Republicans, we have differences. We have policy issue differences, and it's okay to have policy issue differences, right? We don't need to call people names and group people. What we need to do is be able to go, okay, I know we have differences here, so let's sit down at the table and let's put on a piece of paper what we absolutely won't negotiate, and let's work around it to find solutions for the county, especially at the county level, right? I mean, these jobs shouldn't even be partisan to begin with. These jobs don't have anything to do with legislating, right? We don't make laws. What are the things that divide us as Democrats and Republicans, right? Things like, you know, abortion, gun control, immigration. These are the hot topic items. The Commissioner's Court's never going to take votes on these things. That's not what we do. I mean, this is about transparent, accountable spending of taxpayers' money and running the county business. That's what this job's about. And so we shouldn't be politicizing these issues, whether it's the Woodlands Parkway extension or 249 or anything else, right? We shouldn't be politicizing them. We should be sitting down and trying to find solutions and make sure people understand why we came to the conclusion that we did, the things we went through to get there, and these were the options, this is why they weren't viable, and here's what we were left with, right? Because the more education we can give people, the better. And how am I going to promote that? Well, if I get elected, I'm doing town halls all the time right now. I'm not going to stop doing them if I get elected. I will always make myself available. And if you don't agree with me, come ask me questions, because I will tell you exactly why I made decisions that I made. And that's how you start building trust in your local government.
So recently, there's been a lot of controversy over the new 249 tollway. And from my understanding, if you use 249, you will pay a toll, and if not, you will use the feeder road as well, and you will not. So, the question at hand is, what is your current plan regarding county tolls, and your thoughts on the current proposal on the 249 tollway?
Yeah. So let me first tell you where I stand on toll roads. Right. So toll roads Number one, I think it's irresponsible to throw them out the window and say we're never going to use them. But what you should do is put them at the bottom of the list, right? And you should put every viable option you have to build a road, whatever it is, whether that's state funding, local funding, public-private partnerships, whatever it is. And then obviously you have road bonds and you have toll roads, which should be the two last options that are on the list. And you go vet all those options and you see what's viable, what makes sense, right? Could we always build the road with local money? We sure could. You know how we could do that? Jack up your taxes. So we could do it. It could be done every time. But people don't want that, right? So we have to look at those things, but we have to be transparent about what did we do to vet these things? Why did we come up with the conclusion that this toll road was the option that was the most viable? Because the reality is there's a lot of misinformation out there. A toll road is built with private investor money, right? These are called revenue bonds, which are sold to investors. And this is not taxpayer money. And people wanted to use the fact that the Montgomery County Toll Road Authority borrowed money from the county to start doing things with this project. And of course, they were paid back when the bonds were sold. So at the end of the day, no taxpayer money is used to build it. It's going to bring in a huge amount of commercial development. I don't know if any of you pay attention to the 99 between 45 and 59. I live in Porter, so I use it all the time. And I can tell you on that stretch of road, which by the way, wouldn't have been built as fast as it was if it wasn't for ExxonMobil. ExxonMobil's the reason it was built as fast as it was. But the amount of development that's going on that road is amazing. And development is good, right? Commercial development is good. It increases the value of our properties. It increases the value of Montgomery County in general. It increases the viability for companies wanting to move their people here. And so, you know, sometimes we have to embrace that. And the other thing about the 249, you're exactly right. You're going to pay if you use it. But if you don't use it and there's other alternatives, then you don't pay. And at the end of the day, I've seen this with 99 because I used to have to take 1314 to 242 to get over to this, you know, Woodlands or to the west side of the county. Well, I can tell you, regardless of which way I take now, the traffic is fairly light on both of them because it's been distributed now. So it certainly has eased the traffic burden. And of course, the stuff they're doing at 1314 and 242 with the flyover they're putting in right now is even going to make it better on that stretch. So we have to put it in perspective, right? And I look at it from a positive side. We keep hearing so much negative stuff about the 249 extension, but let me put it to you this way. We are now going to have this conduit between a great economy in Montgomery County and a great economy in College Station. I don't know if you recognize how good the economy is in College Station, but it's fantastic. And so now we're putting this conduit between the two. So now if you're a small business owner that can take your business, especially if you're a mobile business, you now have this much easier access to get to College Station, and they have much easier access to get to us. So again, if we look at improving our economy in the county and continuing to grow it, this is a great thing. If we look at relieving traffic stress, I would venture to guess there's probably more people in Magnolia that are happy about the 249 than are unhappy when it comes to relieving the traffic from, you know, whether it's the Renaissance Festival or whatever it is. So, you know, we have to put these things in perspective, right? And we're not going to make everybody happy as elected officials. That's not how life works. But it's important that we make sure the truth is out there and that the information's out there about why we've made the decisions that we've made. Because again, that's what builds public trust, and that's what people want. They want to know why. And that's what I don't see come out of our government at many levels, is why did you make the decision you made? So,
Thanks, sir.
Now, using the public works that you just mentioned, do you feel as if the money is being funneled unequally? Or would you keep the money being funneled as it is, or would you rather see a change in how that money is being directed?
are you talking about from like precinct to precinct?
Yes.
So the precincts get a pretty distributed amount of money, right? I have not seen that it's wholly out of whack necessarily when it comes to the annual funding that each of the precincts get, right? They get a certain amount of funding for roads and stuff like that, which is, you know, I think it's like $8 million-ish, right in that neighborhood. Sounds like a lot of money, but the truth of the matter is when it costs $175,000 a mile to do anything with roads, it doesn't go that far. right? So, so we have to take that into account. Now, that's just annual funding that comes through, by the way, right? And we have to make sure that we prioritize areas. Now, when it comes to other things, and I'll specifically talk about things like Harvey, or we could even go back to the early 90s, any major flood event that has occurred in our county. I can tell you right now that Precinct 4 in East County, in all of those events, specifically since the early 90s, have had the highest number of damaged and destroyed homes in any major flood event that we've had. And I can tell you right now that East County does not get the attention or the dollars that they should be getting to help combat these types of things, right? Because they tend to get written off. It's East County, whatever, it's rural, you know, they're hillbillies, whatever they say. Whereas when Creekside in the Woodlands gets flooded, which by the way isn't even Montgomery County, people start freaking out, right? And so we need to put some balance here and look at data, right? And I'm not saying it because I live in East County. I'm just saying it because the data shows and proves that that's what reality is, and that's where the attention needs to go. So we need to be able to use data and do it, and not just say, well, it's East County, I think this area should get more money because, right? And it's a balancing act. I'll tell you this, the last thing I'll say about this is it's a balancing act, because you have 4 commissioners that say, my precinct's #1. Well, the job of the county judge is to look at the holistic picture and put things in perspective. That we understand that you believe your precinct is #1, but here's what the data says, and here's what we need to do in reality to make it distributed in a reasonable, logical manner. So,
Thanks.
We see the county judge as a nonpartisan position. You work for the people of Montgomery County, Republican, Democrat, Independent, Conservative, Liberal. How are you going to pull the county together, work for all sides in a bipartisan way, and be transparent in all government contexts?
yeah, there's a great question. That's like the glory goal of the whole thing, right? And I think I've tried to do a good job in this campaign in that I've not been afraid to go anywhere or talk to anybody. I don't name call people. I run this campaign on the issues in this county. And these issues aren't Republican or Democrat issues. These are issues that we face in a daily life just living here. And I try to stress that. And I've tried to forge relationships with all of the elected officials in the county since I started this. I've approached every single one of them, reached out to every one of them. I've asked for sit-downs with every one of them. Some of them have given that to me and some of them haven't. And that's their prerogative. But the point of the whole thing is that we have to learn, like I said earlier, that this is not about R and D and I or L. This is about the people that live here, right? And people can, people have certainly put me into categories because I'm a Democrat, and that's fine. That's their prerogative. But at the end of the day, I am running for this job because #1, I'm qualified, and #2, I know there's a problem in our country, in our state, and in our county with the polarization of politics. And until we start electing people that don't buy into it and won't fall for the trap of continually making things partisan issues as opposed to not, right? Because I'll even give you a good Craig Doyle one that he always liked to tell me. That pothole right there doesn't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat, it just wants to get fixed, right? And it's absolutely no different. I mean, county politics is not about partisan anything. County politics is about making the quality of life of the people that live here better. And my whole intent of running in this race is to improve the quality of life of everybody that lives here and make Montgomery County the #1 place to live in. I mean, that is my intent from day one. And the way we start changing that is have leaders that show that as an example, right? That we're not going to sit and bicker and argue about petty political differences. We're going to do the business of the county and get it done. So.
We have no further questions on our side.
Thank you, sir.
Well,
Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you guys, right? So, I mean, this is exactly what I was talking about as a start, right? So, here you have a young Republican group and a young Democrat group that are working together to try to, evaluate candidates that are running for jobs that shouldn't be partisan anyway, right? Because you guys have to recognize that you guys are the leaders that are coming up the pike. right? I mean, that's what this is all about. And we have to start building the bridges, if you will, when people are young, right? People aren't hateful with each other because that's how they were born. They're hateful with each other because that's what they're taught. And we have to recognize that. And until we get leaders that start, showing how to be an adult, I'll be honest with you that most of the kids I've ever met, whether it's high school or even younger, they could teach adults a whole lot of things about being civil with each other. So I certainly commend you for working together to do this, because I think it's a good start at trying to fix some of the crazy partisan things and fracturing events that occur, whether it's between parties or within parties in our county. So I really want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Blake Clifton, Vice President of Young Republicans of Magnolia High Schools.
Hunter Gamble, President of the Young Republicans Club of Magnolia High School.
Nico Montalvo, President of the Conroe High Democrat Club.
Maddie Lake, member of the Conroe High Democrat Club.
Mark Keogh is our Republican nominee for county judge.
And the Democrat nominee for county judge is Jay Stillberg.
Mark Keogh and his campaign manager, our Republican candidate, did not reply to any of our emails, so we had to review his website and social media to get information. He also did not provide answers for the Montgomery County Republican Review in the 2018 primary.
Just the fact that he's not really responding.
Right, Jay Stillberg. It was when we were trying to get in touch with him, the email link wasn't working. And when I went to his Facebook Messenger, he responded in 2 minutes, saying that he will be here.
Yeah,
That says something.
yeah, that does say something.
Just from a first impression, even though we didn't get to meet this man, Stuttelberg.
Definitely one. Yeah.
One more.
Yeah. Mark was a used car salesman,
Did that for a while.
a minister.
He's now a minister. Yes.
Yep. And he was a state representative in Austin.
So he does have political experience.
Yes. Yes.
Is it enough compared to his actual background?
Yes. Or his competitor.
Exactly. Another thing was that on Mark's website, one of the first written pieces of text you see is conservative Mark for county judge. And the rest of the website gives the tone that he will keep the position conservative. Whereas Stittelberg in his interview said that this is a nonpartisan position.
Yeah,
and
I agree with
he
that.
heavily stressed that it's nonpartisan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
As county judge, I wouldn't want personal beliefs to get in the way of a logical decision.
Right.
And if you're running it partisan, I feel like those beliefs can get in the way. And so if you can make sure it's a nonpartisan position, you're more effectively doing the job.
And our bylaws, the Young Republicans bylaws, say that we have to assist in the election of Republican nominees. So, as a person, Blake Clifton, I'm supporting of Jay Stillberg's.
Right.
Conroe
High Democrat
Democrat Club
strongly endorses
endorses
Jay
Jay
Stillberg. He's been at numerous meetings of ours. He's been helping us out with so much. He seems, to us at least, that
There's
he
not
is.
been a single community event I have been to and he has not been there.
Pleasant face to see him.
Yeah. Especially with his military background, being a submarine warfare officer.
Exactly.
He has
How long was
respect.
it?
15 years.
Give or take.
Yeah.
It's dedication.
As as vice president and founder of the Young Republicans of Magnolia High Schools, I'm going to have to assist in the election of my Republican nominee. But as Blake Clifton, I support Jay Stillberg.
All right.
Yahtzee.
And as a person, Hunter Gamble, I do support Jay Stillberg also.
I can say this, we can say this on camera. When we first founded the Democrat Club, Montgomery County Democrat Party invited us to one of their dinners, and Jay was there giving a speech, and he was talking about how we should vote for him in the primaries. And right after he gave that speech, he came up directly to the club and started talking about how wonderful it was that younger kids were starting to be politically active.
That's exactly how Commissioner Riley was to us.
Really?
Exactly. Like, he supported us like every step of the way, and I'm assuming Jay has with y'all
Jay
as
has
well.
been so
Definitely.
supportive.
He was there for our first meetings, like,
Yeah. To add on that, we were at, I forgot what debate it was the most recent one with Ms. Lori. And, Stoneberg was there, and he came up to us afterwards, shook our hand, telling how glad he was to meet us.
Exactly.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
And, yeah.
He seems really that, like, he truly believes in the blending of certain positions with the
Yeah.
parties.
Yeah.
he might be running from a Democrat, like, party, but
But
He doesn't-
he
yeah,
personally,
he does, he's not acting as a Democrat.
Yeah,
He's just,
yeah.
that's the way he's going through it.
And I've never remembered meeting, Mark.
Kehoe.
Yeah, so,
No clue.
yeah, I've never,
we had never heard of him until we started researching.
Got a response from him, so we can't really interpret.
yeah,
Yeah.
we didn't, he never gave us any information.
The fact that out of all the candidates and people we've been interviewing in the last two days, you know, the fact that we either got a response back to questions or saying like, hey, I can't make it, like, just because you can't make it doesn't mean you're like a bad person for the role. But as long as you're responding, it means that you have the integrity to go, hey, like, we understand, like, sorry I can't make it, here, let me try my best to do what I can.
Right.
Exactly, like for, Ms. Bush, she said she had prior engagements, but she
still
has the qualifications.
And she still
Yes.
answered the
Yes.
questions that y'all presented.
Yeah.
Yeah, she emailed us back questions.
Yeah, we get your response back from.
Yeah.